God's story, kingdom. So part of God's story is about what Jesus called the kingdom. And it goes like this. When Jesus would teach people about God, he would tell them about God's kingdom. He would say God's kingdom is here, or put God's kingdom first. That might be confusing to us today, especially if we live in a country that doesn't have a king. A kingdom is wherever the king is in charge. Kings can give commands, and people in the kingdom obey those commands. So in God's kingdom, where God is in charge, people follow God's commands. And in the part of the Bible called the law, there are a lot of commands. It was kind of confusing. Even experts on the law would argue about which commands were more important than others. One day, some religious experts asked Jesus, "Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law?" Jesus said,
Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul. Love God with all your mind.
Now that's what they expected Jesus to say. But then Jesus said,
And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. Everything that was written in the law and the prophets is based on these two commandments.
Jesus was saying that if people choose to let God be in charge of their lives, then they'll show it by treating other people, their neighbors, with love. Because God loves everyone. People we know, like our family and friends, but also people we don't know, like strangers we've never even met. God even loves people who might seem like enemies. Jesus showed God's love by helping people. He healed people who were sick, and he spent time with people who other people didn't like. He even died to rescue everyone from all the times we've disobeyed God's laws. And he did it all to prove God's love. But God's kingdom didn't stop when Jesus died. Jesus came back to life and told his followers to spread God's kingdom throughout the entire world. And that's exactly what they did. See, Jesus had told them stories or parables to teach them about God's kingdom. Jesus said that the kingdom was like a tiny mustard seed that was planted in the ground and then grew and grew and grew until it became the biggest tree in the garden. And the birds that might have wanted to eat that tiny mustard seed could now build a nest in the mustard tree's branches. God's kingdom might seem really small at first, but it never stops growing. Jesus also said God's kingdom was like buried treasure that a man found in a field. Then when he realized how valuable the treasure was, he buried it again, sold everything he owned, and used the money to buy the whole field. Jesus was saying there's nothing more wonderful and good than to be in God's kingdom. The best news is God's kingdom isn't a place, like a field, or a building, or a country, that only certain people are allowed into. God's kingdom is wherever people love God and love other people. That means God's kingdom can be anywhere in the world, and everyone can choose to be part of it. Wherever someone knows that every good thing they have comes from God, and so they share what they have with others, that can be God's kingdom. Wherever someone knows that God has forgiven them for messing up, and so they forgive someone else who's messed up too, that can be God's kingdom. Wherever someone learns about Jesus and tries to do the things that Jesus did, that can be God's kingdom too. And that's a little about God's kingdom. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Jesus talked about God's kingdom. The greatest commands are to love God and love people. Jesus showed what that looked like. The kingdom is like a mustard seed that grows into a tree. It's also like buried treasure. The kingdom is wherever people love God and love people. And that's a part of God's story.
Because of everything that's going on right now, we're not able to get into the office to animate that video yet. But God's Story Kingdom is gonna be cool, we promise you, and when it's ready, we'll put it on our YouTube channel. We decided to try something a little different with this God Story video. We went on Facebook and asked you, yes, you, watching right now, to help us out. We asked you to get creative, to draw pictures, to act things out in your homes, to do random acts of kindness and get it on camera. And you delivered. We're so proud of the kids, families, and volunteers in our community. But not just because we were able to make a really sweet, wonderful video. We're proud because this is what the kingdom looks like. This is what it looks like when people who follow Jesus put their beliefs into action. Thank you to everyone who was involved in the making of that video.